Welcome everybody, Chris Petri here. We're doing another Extreme Beginner Series video. Wow, we're going to have a great time. We're going to do a beautiful sailboat painting here. We're going to kind of cover all the details you need to get this one done. We're going to cover the glazing technique, which is beautiful watercolor washes to start with, lighter washes. And then after that, we go in and we do our darker darks here. We cover right from the start how to sketch and draw this painting. We also show you here in this video how you're going to section off where you want your shorelines to be. Where do you want your, how big do you want your sky to be? Where do you want your sailboats to sit in your painting, in your rectangle? We cover all those details and even more. Colors, we cover the absolute beautiful color combinations you want to use with your painting. So get ready, grab your paints, grab your brushes, grab your paper. We're going to have a fun time here creating this video, creating this painting, and we'll get started in just a second. All right, so we're moving right along. We just saw the finished painting, and we're going to get started here. Usually, this is, well, of course, this is an Extreme Beginners series video, so this is kind of like we're going to use more of a simple palette. You know, these are the great palettes. We use the Prang Oval 16 palette. You know, you give it a little spritz with water. Anytime you open it up, you give it a little spritz with water, and you're ready to paint. And then when you're done, you fold up your palette, or you leave it out, doesn't matter. And whether you come back the next day, or the next hour, or a month from now, it's going to be the same. You won't have to worry about anything. You can just give it another spritz of water, and you're ready to go. And it looks beautiful. The paints flow nice. So this is just a great palette for beginners because, you know, when you're just starting out, you might not always have time. So, you know, you don't want to have to be worrying too much about a fancier palette with squeezed tube paints in there and, you know, having to worry about how to take care of a palette with the tube paints is a little more challenging, a little more difficult. I've got tons of videos on it. You can look up my videos, Chris Petri palette. You just type in Chris Petri and the word palette, P-A-L-E-T-T-E. And then you'll see I probably have like 10 or 12 videos on palettes. So if you do want to research it, you absolutely can. So that's why I'm always, I try to always promote my other videos that I have that I've created in the past, so that you can research things and study up on things if you want, because maybe you're at the point where you do want to start using tube paints because they're a little more long-lasting. Or a lot more long-lasting actually. If you create a painting, the colors will stay a lot more beautiful and rich and vibrant. The Prang Oval 16 paints look good, but they might fade over a year's time. So, you know, maybe if you have it for 5 or 10 years of painting, the colors might fade a little bit here and there. So, you know, you have to, if you're just starting out, you know, you may not be worrying about that too much. But in any case, let's get started. So I tape my paper here, and then I'm just thinking about what kind of paper do I have here. I have the, this is the Fabriano Artistico block paper. So it comes in blocks. All the blocks of the paper are all gummed blocks or gummed. All the pages are gummed together. So you just finish a painting, let it dry 100%, and then you peel off the top page, and then you have another sheet of paper on top of that. Not to confuse things too much or get into too much detail, but that's a little bit different than the flip pads where you just flip over a new piece of paper. So the blocks are a little better if you're doing painting like this, which is a lot of water. We're going to use the glazing technique, and that's using a lot of wash and a lot of water, especially for our first run here, our first go. So you'll see how we do this in just a second, but I'm going to try to look at, so a block paper looks pretty much like this. The paper's all gummed together, all the sheets. There's probably like 25 or 50 sheets in a pad. And then right here you can use a small little butter knife and trim off your page once your painting is 100% dry, and then you have a really nice... What's great about the gum blocks is when you paint on them, your paper will get buckled if you add a lot of water to your paper, but if you let it dry overnight or for, let's say, 6 or 8 hours, or if you use a blow dryer for like 5 or 10 minutes, the paper will go back to a beautiful flat state. So this way when you're painting again on top of it doing overwashes with subsequent washes over top, you're going to have that beautiful, nice flat paper again to work with, that nice paper where there's no buckles and things like that. So that's the real advantage of having the gum blocks if you buy these. They're a little more expensive, and But if you want to just have one block and buy one and then just use it once in a while and just see how it performs, you're really going to be impressed by it. I was really impressed. I remember the first few times I actually tried gum blocks, I was like amazed at how great they work, especially with a lot of wet washes. Okay, so let's get into it here. The paper is actually a 7 by 10. Again, Fabriano Artistico, extra white paper. And you can get a lot of different types of block paper. There's Arches, and I think there's, I've seen some other block paper out there too. There's some student grade that is really excellent, fluid. One is called Fluid, which they have the gum blocks. Then there's also, I think, a few others. But you have to shop around with these type of things, and I'm always trying to find a bargain when I'm out shopping for my paper online. But so I just did a quick, tape around the outside edge, and this is like a 1/2-inch artist tape, drafting tape. So I go around the outside edge with this 1/2-inch tape, just so we have a nice, crisp, clean border. Once we're done with our painting, we'll peel this tape up, and it looks just great. You'll see how good that looks when you put a border around your paintings, and I suggest you always put some tape border around even practice sessions and things like that when you're doing practice type paintings, because when you lift off the tape, you have like a frame. It's almost like you framed your painting. It looks beautiful. So if you're just starting out, you definitely want to think about that. It's really fantastic to have the little bit of tape on your paper all the time when you do it. The only thing is you really want to make sure you use really like low tack tape. I think the best tape for the money is the kind you can get in the big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's and your local hardware stores. They have painter's tape. Well, you can use the painter's tape. It's usually blue. And if you can find like there's frog tape, that's like green. They come in green, yellow, purple. There's different colors. But yeah, any of those were great. Like the painter's tapes that the painters use, the commercial painters that come out and paint your house and things like that. They use a lot of the really good tapes, and they're really not that expensive actually, and they work great. When you lift them up, it won't tear your paper whatsoever. So I'm just going to grab a pencil, and we're going to do some sailboats. And the fun about this is I'm not going to really. This is improv. So I'm just going to improvise here and just maybe create a little scene. And so you're just going to work with my painting. So you can use my finished painting that I show you right in the beginning to work from, or you can work from it as we go here, but it's really kind of simple. I'm just going to go with a simple approach. I know sometimes this doesn't look great on camera, as far as the marks on my paper, but really the first thing we always do in watercolor is we want to look at it and say, where's the light coming from? So the first thing I'll do is I'll take some Sharpie marker and put a light, which signifies where the light is coming from. And for this painting, it's going to be from over top. So this will be the sunlight, or you can even put a sunlight like this. You could put a sun like that and then have an arrow, sunlight coming down. You make your own insignias if you like to. I usually use the spotlight. But you could do a sun like this, something like that. And then an arrow saying that's like sunlight's coming from the top of the picture like this, coming down. And then the next thing I would do is just make a few hash marks around the painting wherever you might need to kind of give yourself some marks where when you start sketching, you'll have an idea of where you want to go with things. So here, I'm going to go with thirds. So if we can break our paper down into thirds, you can say, okay, that's the top, this is the bottom. And then if we broke this down into 3 sections, it would be approximately like this and like this. So you'd have, let's say 1/3 here, 1/3 here, and 1/3 here. Or you could say this is 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. So for the first third, so that's all I wanted to do. Maybe for the vertical too, you could do another hash mark here, and you could say, well, where do you want to put your main subject matter within this rectangle here? And we could also take our pencil and just remember, okay, we're working in a rectangle here. So there we go. We're going to make our pencil line right around our page like that. And then we're going to say, okay, where do we want to maybe put our sailboats when we start out? And I'm going to say really simply, let's go maybe thirds again. So I'll say this is halfway. maybe I'll go quarters up top. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. So I'll go thirds over here, and then I'll go quarters over here. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, full. So that's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. So you can break up your painting any way you want to. I'm thinking quarters across this way, vertically quarters, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, and then for the horizontal line layout, I would go 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. So if you always think of your paintings this way, you are going to have so much of an easier time actually putting things together. So even if you're working outdoors and looking at a scene, or if you're working from a photograph or copying from books, from watercolor books, maybe my book, I'm hoping you're buying my watercolor book. Copy all the paintings you want on my watercolor book that I just put out just recently actually it was already been about a year my book's been out. Chris Petri, Methods for Success. I'll actually show you the book, and maybe a little bit later in the video we'll go through some of the pages and you can see the paintings. They're really beautiful, and you can work from my book. You can just take my book, put it on a table, and start painting and copy all the paintings you want. And it's great to work from finished watercolor paintings because you really get the essence of what you're shooting for as far as your look goes. So, all right, so let's keep going here. Let's get to the main. I thought here we're going to get where's our sailboats going to be? So we said the verticals, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Let's go over here for our first bit of sailboats, but let's go a little bit in from this 3/4. Let's maybe go over here. Let's go halfway between that. And then I'm just going to have a fun time drawing a few sails. So I'm just going to come down here like that. But before I do that, I'm going to get the shoreline. That I think that's even more important. Let's get the shorelines here. So I'm just going to go, all right, maybe the distant shoreline is going to be over here. So I'm going to make a distant shoreline over here, like that. That's something interesting, a distant shoreline. And then maybe a little bit of water here, and then maybe halfway down this way, we're going to make a little bit of a sandbar. And maybe this is the beach over here with the sand. Oh, that's going to look good. Some sand over here, sand, water with our boats kind of situated here. And then we'll have a distant horizon line of some shoreline over here. Okay, so we have our beach here, our water, and our sky. And we have a little bit of, let's do a little bit of distant mountains. Light pencil line, just get some ideas down. Light pencil line there, that's for our distant mountains. And there's some more close mountains here and lower hills along the shoreline here. And then we have our beach sand here. And what else? That's pretty good. The rest is sky. And then let's get a couple sails in here. A couple sails is all we need to get us really going here. Let's do that. Let's do a couple sails like this, like that. And these are fun. You can use stencils if you want. You can use rulers. You can kind of just take your time and just kind of lightly pencil it, maybe. Lightly pencil it until you kind of get the feel and say, okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. Then you could do a darker line like that, like this. And then that might be one sail, and there's another one over here. Same boat, has the two sails. And you do another one like that, maybe. And like this. Like that. And maybe there's another sailboat over here, like this. Maybe that's just the mast. Maybe there's just a boat over here with a mast. Maybe that's maybe that's just a sailboat where the sails are down and the boom is over here. The sails there, and over here we have the like that. Okay, there we go. So we have lots of fun here, kind of creating our couple of sailboat ideas. Let's not go for perfection. And then so we have one sailboat here. We have the mast of the other sailboat here, but the sails are down, and they're just kind of sitting here on the mast tied off. And then maybe we have another small sailboat over here. Like this. With a mast like that. Perfect. And then notice I have them kind of tipped. That looks really good. Sometimes it's like a little bit, I don't know, a lot of times when we're doing sailboats, we might always make them straight. Let's give these some movement. So almost like it's windy out and the boats are swaying like this. That's kind of a cool thing, right? You kind of feel the wind if you make the sailboats tipped like this. It kind of feels like wind. It gives you that feeling of the breezes and the wind coming through the area here where our gorgeous sailboats are at the shoreline here. And we have some people. We're going to draw on some figures too. And we'll do this other sailboat here. And then we'll do some figures. Why not? Let's do some figures here. And again, we always say our figures are kind of like carrots. We just do like a carrot shape with a head on top. And we could do some arms. But I think if you get the basic shape of the carrot, you're all set. And then over here, maybe there's another figure here. And then sometimes you can take the carrot and kind of bend it in the middle. Get a little more of an interesting dynamics to the figure. Like that. And we have a couple figures there. Maybe there's a figure over here in the boat. So I'll just make the head like that, a little dot, and then the shoulders, and there's someone in the boat over here. And maybe the same thing over here too. Maybe there's someone over here. I think this is fine. 1, 2, and 3. 3 figures is good. So you kind of see how I'm building this all. And what I'll do is I will go over this with a little bit of a darker wash. This way you can kind of, darker pencil line, so you can kind of see what I did. I think I went pretty quick here with the pencil lines. I think you can probably see what I'm doing halfway decent, but let me go over with a darker pencil line in just a second. And we'll also do another couple rowboats or just, regular, I would say, rowboats basically over here with no sails or anything like that. And we'll put a couple figures in those too. And we'll have a great time doing it, okay? And we'll actually have another boat over here in the distance, maybe a fishing boat in the distance over here where the hills are and the mountains across in the far distance. So we're going to make this a really beautiful painting with lots of depth, 3-dimensional quality, a couple beautiful sailboats, some figures, some sand, and a beautiful sky wash. You're really going to have a fun time doing this. We'll put lots of color in there too. So we're not going to be just making it like 1 or 2 colors. We're going to add some really good colors to all this to actually make it really more exciting, okay? All right, let's come right back in just a minute. Again, I just want to take a quick break. And again, when I'm always mentioning this, I know you get tired of hearing it probably, but I do mention it a lot, is take some breaks. Because sometimes when you take a break, you get a little bit more relaxed when you come back to work. So if you take a break for 5 or 10 minutes, you come back, you feel a little more relaxed. You hesitate a little bit, and then you look into your drawing and your painting, and you say, oh, maybe I can do this or that. And you start to think about things a little more versus just going in there and working and working and working and working. And next thing you know, it's like things are kind of, you forgot to think about a few things you might have been able to kind of change a little bit before you went in and did it. But if you're just working and not stepping back and looking and seeing your painting from a little bit of a stepping back approach, you'll find that's really helpful, stepping back and looking at your painting and coming back and thinking a little bit about like what your next steps are going to be. So when you come back to your painting, you're going to go, what am I going to do next? Oh, yeah. I remembered I wanted to draw a few more some rowboats over here and a few things, and then I'll be finished with my drawing. And then I'll go in and I'll start doing my washes. So it's kind of things like that. If you take a step back, relax for a few 5 or 10 minutes, or even you got to have to do some errands and you come back in a couple hours later, it's just a pencil drawing at this point. So you can come back a day later even if you want and finish up your pencil drawing and then continue the process. So never feel like you're locked into just doing your painting all at one time. You can break up your watercolors over a day's time, so there's never any rush with it. But a lot of times I know you're really excited and you want to paint everything at one time. So that's the way I am too. Okay, so let's come back in just a second. All right, so we're going to get painting. Usually when I do the glazing technique, I'll have plenty of water. So I have a water bucket here, and usually what I do is my water buckets, I always have like an old brush. I use an old fan brush, and I always kind of stir around some water in my water bucket before I start painting, and I make sure I clean off all the sediment on the bottom of my water bucket. And then I go in and I dump that out in a bucket that I have, a large bucket alongside my table. And then what I do is then I go in and add that fresh clean water once I kind of scrub around on the bottom of my water bucket. And then I have my fresh clean water. And then we just set it over onto my right hand side over here on my table. And then I have a sponge, a small piece of kitchen sponge. I just cut it into a small piece, maybe about 1.5 by 1.5 inches. I set that right by my water bucket, and this way I can take some water off my brush when I need to. And again, the glazing technique, the first thing we do is we want to use more of a larger brush for this type of painting. So we would have a larger brush. This is the, I always talk about the Princeton Art and Brush Company. They have like a 5 or 6 pack brush kit you can look up. And you just look it up. It's Princeton Art and Brush Company on Amazon. And you'll see these are very easy to really spot when you're out there on Amazon. They have the wood handle, so it looks like a wood handle. It's actually painted finish, but it looks like a wood handle, basically. Or it is a wood handle, but it's kind of, they have it varnished and everything, so it looks really beautiful. And then the hairs of the brush are actually white. The hairs are now a little bit, like greenish blue because of the paints. The paints eventually change the color of the the hairs of the brush, but they started out like a white color, the brush hairs, kind of like this. So when you see this brush, the Princeton Art and Brush Company set, it's 5 or 6 brushes for like $12 on Amazon. You'll see that the brush hairs look more white like this, and that's really about it. And then there's numerous brushes in the pack. So you have a couple of these brushes, the square brushes or flat brushes. There's a couple of round brushes with the points on them like this. So you get a good variety of brushes. But the thing I wanted to mention was, since we're doing the glazing technique, you're going to do lots of water on this first wash. And we're going to cover the whole paper with water, fresh, clean water. So that's the key here. So what I do is I just take my water container, and I have that with me here, and I can just leave it right there, and I just get the water, and I dampen the paper all the way. But what I do is I paint around the sails first, though. I don't want to paint over the sails with the water. So I'm going to carefully take my brush and paint around those sails. So I hope you'll remember to do that. So when you're wetting your paper, dampening your paper, I should say, and we will add a little more water. But at first you're just kind of wetting the paper with your brush, and you can paint over everything else but the sails. You want to leave the sails. You want to leave the sails without any water on them. You want to keep those dry. We don't want the water and paint to flow into the sails. So there we go. We go like this. I'm carefully going with the flat brush around the sails, underneath it, but not over it. So I'm going around the white sails there, just like that. And I pick up some more water, and so I'm just wetting the whole paper. Again, not the sails though. And we keep going, and we just go right along here, right along the bottom of the page. And then we can add a little more water up top to kind of give ourselves a little bit of a more interesting bit of extra water on the top of the paper. And that's about it. And the rest is going to go fine. So that's where we're going to leave off right now. Then I grab a tissue to blot in case I need to blot up any of the water. But I think we should be fine. Then we'll just take a little bit of color. We're looking for that cerulean blue, so we're going to go with this color here, the cerulean blue look, kind of there, like that, with a little bit of the there was a little bit of the brown and black left over, and if I mix that in to that blue, it kind of grays it down a little bit. You see how that works? That really looks nice. So you could always add in a little touch of brown and maybe a very, very, very tiny bit of black into your blue here. And that gives you a little bit of a grayed down blue, which kind of looks just like cerulean blue, a little bit opaque. Okay, and then what else do we want? A little bit of orange. Like that. Rinse off the brush, pick up a little bit of orange. Like that, and I think that'll be fine. Okay, so now, look how good that looks. That's just great. And we're going to do the white, some white clouds right here. So we'll leave this go like white there. Right down in the water. And I'll pick up the little bit of extra paint and put that at the top. Like that. That's the water. And you can put a little blue over that, but I would say keep the blue basically the sky and the water. Like that. Are we having fun or what? Look how good that looks. Maybe a little more. I can blot up a little bit of, you can blot in some clouds like I just did with your tissue, clean tissue, fresh clean tissue. You can put in some clouds. But you can't keep doing too much. Once you kind of get that wash on, you want to let it go and just let it dry like that. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to let this dry now. If you wanted to, you could get a little more blue up here. Just a little bit more color maybe up there. But then that's about it though. Because once your wash is on there, if you keep going back in and touching the paper, it ruins the wash actually. It ruins the wash on the paper because once the paper starts to absorb the paint and the water, as you first go in there and start doing it, if you keep going over top of it with more brush strokes and more water, it just floods the paper too much, and then the paper's trying to dry and we're adding too much water. So that's just a fun thing to remember, a good thing to remember, very crucial, is get that first wash like we're doing now, the first glazing, get it on the paper and walk away from it, and then take a break and walk away for like 10, 20 minutes, or actually an hour or two. If you have a blow dryer, you can blow dry this off, and that works, wonderful too. You can keep working if you want. If you want to keep working on the painting, you just grab a blow dryer and blow dry off till the paper becomes nice and flat again, and there's no buckles in the paper. So if you see buckles in the paper, it's way too wet. You don't want to go back in and paint. But if you see that you're using your blow dryer and all the paper becomes flat with no buckles, then you know it's perfect. You can go back in and start painting. You can touch it too and feel it and say, oh yeah, that feels dry enough. And then you can go in and do some darker washes like the figures and the boats like we're going to do next. But what I'm going to do is blow dry this. But I don't want to bore you with sitting here and making all that noise with the blow dryer. I'm going to just shut the camera off for a few minutes and blow dry this until it's dry, and then we'll come back in and we'll finish it up because we're almost done actually. This is the really fun part about the glazing technique. Once you get that first wash, that gorgeous wash, we wet the paper, we added the color, we blotted up a tiny bit with some clouds with our tissue. Once you do that, you're set. You let it dry 100%, and then we'll come back and we'll do our darker washes over top. Okay, so we'll be right back again. All right, so we are back. We're going to actually get started again. We're going to do our secondary washes now, our second glazing. So we talked about the glazing technique, and I always mention, I haven't mentioned this, but if you're brand new here, welcome. Thanks so much for coming by. I really appreciate that you're coming by, having some faith in me to kind of show you the methods and techniques of watercolor here on my channel. I'm here every week, every month, and every year. I'm constantly working on YouTube, working to help everyone to learn the watercolor medium. And it's so much fun. I'm so excited about it. And if you're just here for the first time, thank you for coming by. It's great to have you. I'm hoping you'll keep coming back. And I always mention that if you subscribe on the right-hand side below, that means that you'll be just alerted when I make my new videos, which is every week. And this way you won't lose track of me, and you'll be able to kind of follow along kind of my new videos that come out, and you'll kind of see which ones you like, and you can work along with me on the ones that you really feel you're interested in. So it's just a fun thing. And it's not like you have, I'm going to send you any emails or text messages or anything like that. When you subscribe on YouTube, all it is YouTube just wants to help you to keep a track of those people that you really enjoy on YouTube. And that's all it is, really. There's no other kind of gimmicks to it or anything like that. So I hope you'll subscribe on the right-hand side below on the subscribe button. You just click on that. I hope you'll leave comments too if you're just starting out here and maybe you're coming here for the first time, or you're just starting out with your first few paintings. I want you to let me know in the comments section. If you type in 1, that means you're just starting out. You're beginning your art journey, your watercolor journey. It's a great journey. It's a fun journey. You'll have a wonderful time, and it's all about having fun, enjoying the watercolor medium. It's the kind of thing you can just lose yourself in. We all have stresses in our life. You get in there, you grab your pencils, your paper, your paints, and you start doing a little bit of artwork for maybe 15 minutes or half an hour. And the next thing you know, you forget everything else, and you're just having a good time. And that's what watercolor is about. That's what it is for me. I lose myself in it. I enjoy it so much. I forget about any of the other problems in life maybe that are going on, or stresses and things like that. I'm just totally in the zone, and I want you to kind of have that same fun that I have. So that's what I'm kind of trying to pass on here. And so I know you will. I know many of you are already, have been painting with me, months and even years now. And then there's many of you that I know that have been following me for many, many years too, that probably watch these videos as well. So thank you everyone for coming by and joining along with me each time we create a new painting. And it's always fun just to pick up the pencils and the paper and the paints and brushes and have a good time creating artwork. It's so much fun and enjoyable. So let's get started here. We talked about, again, the glazing technique. And if you're new here, all it is really you get your sketch in, and then you get your light, beautiful, juicy washes right on the paper. You don't have to add water first if you don't want to, but it really does look beautiful if you add a little bit of dampness to your paper first, and then you get your washes on. But you could just use healthy, good washes with lots of water without wetting your paper or dampening your paper first. That's fine too, But both ways work, but you kind of see how beautiful it is when you get that paper damp. You can actually paint around areas that you want to keep white paper. If you have some areas you want to keep white paper, or areas you want to kind of section off and you don't want too much water flowing in, that's where that advantage is of dampening the paper is first. You do that first, and then you can kind of guide your water washes as they flow down the paper away from the areas you want to kind of keep, maybe let's say white paper, or maybe something you want to keep really light and you don't want to get darker washes on there. Other than that, you let that dry 100%. I use the blow dryer, and now we're ready to go in and do our darker washes. So basically that's the glazing technique in a nutshell. You get your first light washes on first, let it dry 100%. You use the blow dryer, or you wait a couple, 2, 3, 4 hours, however long it takes, so the paper is not really buckled too much and not damp, but pretty much dry, 100% dry or 90% dry. And then you can go back in and do your darker washes over the top. So that's what we're going to do. And at this point too, we'll go with a smaller brush. So I'm going to probably use these 2 brushes here. This brush comes with the Prang Oval 16 set, which we're using right here. Great beginner's watercolor set. I think it's the best out there. And they make different versions of this too. Prang makes maybe like a smaller watercolor set like this. Maybe there's some different shapes. Maybe they have square wells where their paint is in there. So, but Prang semi-moist paint is really what you're looking for. The Prang semi-moist watercolor paint, and that works perfect. And it comes with a brush. I think all their sets come with a brush, so automatically you have a beautiful brush. And then I'm using an extra brush here. This is the it's Simply Simmons brush, and this is a number 9 size. So I just, it's a pretty good size brush. And this one's a little bit smaller, you can kind of see. Both of these are perfect to kind of finish up the painting, get some washes on there. So let's go in. We'll use this, I think, the Simply Simmons first. Let's get those beautiful distant greens in there. So we have some green. I'll mix some greens here and a little bit of brown. A little bit of blue. We use that same blue. Like that. We'll make it light, so we'll add some water to it. Maybe even a little touch of brown. Orange. Okay. And then we'll come over here and we'll just make our distant hills. You know what? I think, yeah, let's do these first. So let's do that. Let's get a little bit of that green in there. And I'm going to make sure I rest my hand on my working table. I'll go over that in a future video. I'll show you my working table so you kind of see how I have it set up. I'll do that actually this weekend. So this weekend, or you'll be maybe watching this video and you'll say, I've got to remember to watch the next video in this series of doing the watercolor, the Extreme Beginners watercolor. I'm going to do an Extreme Beginners how to set up your watercolor table or working station, so you have a good idea of how to do that. That is sometimes the difficulty of watercolor. There's a lot of things that you kind of have to do to get yourself set up, and maybe not every artist will tell you everything they do. I try to cover most of what I do, and many of you ask me questions in the comments section. I try to give you my best take on things of how I do things, but sometimes I don't always maybe answer your questions as best I can, but I will do that. I didn't mention or I know a couple of you mentioned about the working table. I'm going to do that this weekend too. So we did that light green, distant green. It's a distant green here. And then maybe a little bit of orange in there. Let's add some color to that green, right? So if you add a wash like this beautiful green, like it's like an olivey green, then you can go in and add some orange to it and here and there. That adds dynamics to it. It makes it look more interesting looking and not just kind of stagnant and just like one color. One color looks kind of like, I don't know, just doesn't look as good as if you can get a few different colors going. And add a little bit of blue too, so I'll add a little bit of, I'll reactivate that sky wash and add a little bit of that sky wash in there too. And then once you do that, you kind of have to let it dry again too. We don't want to keep going in and there and adding more washes. It has to dry now. And that's good. So now we leave that 100% alone. We don't want to really go back in and add too much of anything. We'll let that dry, and then we'll do that distant purple mountain in the background, all the way in the distance, in the far distance. But we could go over here and get a little bit of a wash over here where our ocean is. So we can go with our sky wash and then go up to the next blue here, and it's a little darker blue. This is kind of like a French ultramarine blue. And then we can just do that and go across here like that. Then take a little bit of water and more paint and just kind of, then take another, rinse off the brush and then just use a damp brush, and then just dampen that in like so. And I think that's fine. You'll see that you have a wonderful looking distant ocean line there. That kind of tells you the story that that's a distant ocean line there, and that's the distant ocean. And you can sail on out of the picture if you want to and go someplace interesting on the ocean. Maybe go to a different shoreline somewhere else, a different city, as you're traveling along the waters. And then we have to let this dry before we do anything else, so we're going to let that dry. Let's work on some of the boats. So for the boats, maybe we're going to make a, let's make one brown. We'll make a nice brown kind of wooden looking boat. Or let's do yellow and brown. Maybe a little bit of that blue we use for the ocean. And there we have a good, like kind of a darker brown. That'll look nice. Kind of, you know, really good contrast, right? So we have a lot of these lighter washes and some medium washes there too. But if we get in this nice dark wood-looking tonal value on the paper, that does look good. It's like a great note in a musical composition or like a solo. If you're listening to a song and you hear a solo or you hear a singer sing like a really strong note, that's what that's like when you do a beautiful dark like that in this painting. It does look kind of wonderful. And then we're going to go in and get some shadow color. So we'll just take some more of that darker blue that we were using before. And let's just make a little bit of a shadow under there, like so. You know, a little bit of a, like that. And there's some more. Like that. Looks wonderful. And then maybe over here, we'll maybe make some of these, but with this one boat here, let's go with that darker blue. Let's get in and get a little darker, just more paint, that's all I'm using. Same blue that we used over here. I'm using that same blue here. And I'll make it a little darker, so we'll go with a little bit of brown in that, just to get it darkened up a little bit. More blue though, let's get, and not, hardly any water. I would say don't even use any water with this. Use a damp brush. So you're just using a damp brush and this blue here with a touch of brown. And you'll get a nice, really beautiful, rich blue. And then that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go over here and get the bottom of this boat and just put that paint on there like so. Like that. And I'll leave a little bit of white paper in between those two boats, which will kind of be like a highlight. And then maybe some more shadows under there like so. And you can kind of see how we're really kind of simplifying things. And we're almost finished now. Let's do this other boat over here. Maybe we'll do this one. Same thing. Let's take some of this dark blue. We'll do this dark blue over here too. There we go. A little bit of a shadow under there, a little bit of a reflection and shadow in the water. Okay, and we have some fireworks. Our neighbors have purchased some fireworks already. They're getting prepped for maybe another celebration of some sorts. I don't know what it is, but hopefully it'll add to our festive mood here. And so I think we're good. Let's let this dry now. You know what? We can still work on our figures a little bit. Let's do that. Let's work on some figures here. Let's make some interesting colors. Let's do some orange. Let's do this orange shirt here. Like that. And then maybe some blue. Maybe some blue jeans there. Or some blue shorts. And then I'll just, you know, when you start out with a carrot, with your drawing, then you can kind of sculpt things down a little more and make things a little more defined. So that's what I'm doing. Actually, I'm just brown and blue, that dark blue again. Maybe more brown and maybe a touch of darker orange and even red. Okay, so we're going to make some flesh color. Orange. Okay, so that's like a little bit of a flesh color there. Rinse off my brush, dry off my brush on a paper towel. This is how you get not flooding out your paper too much with too much water. When you rinse your brush, you either use a sponge or your paper towel or tissue and you dry off your brush so that your brush is dry. Once you rinse it off, then you pick up some paint, That's basically, you can see how this paint is not puddly at all. It's kind of just straight paint with a touch of water, just a little bit of water. And then we can get some legs in here, like that. We'll get some legs going there, a little bit of a shadow there for the figure. There we go. Don't worry about a couple splashes. And we'll do some arms here. Like that. Then let's come over here and let's do maybe a yellow shirt. Why not? Let's do a yellow shirt. Again, we're going to create some beautiful colors here. Why not? Use your colors, right? Let's make some colors here. Let's use the range of colors we have in our palette. So we're going to do like this. We'll use we'll use some of that dark blue again over here. So I'll get some of that dark blue for this over here. Some like that. And remember how we did this. We, started out with that carrot shape, but then once you start using your brush, you can kind of add a little bit of dynamics to your figures. Like, you can kind of sculpt and make it more, interesting looking, like, the pants and the shorts, and then the little, you can do the legs with the flesh colors. So you can kind of have interesting things like that. You can make a little indication of like a bucket or something here. There's like a bucket. So this person is holding a bucket, maybe this, or a bag or something, you can kind of add some fun things to this. Maybe I'll even use a touch of black over here. So we use a little bit of black. I'll do something here. I'll rinse off my brush again. I'll use some more shadow color here. So you can see the lights coming from this way. There might even be some light shadowing from these sails over here. Just a little bit. Kind of just adds to the excitement. And then we have some orange for the sand. We get a little bit of sand in there. And we add some splashes to the sand. Like that. Now this is an extreme beginners video, so I'm trying to just, give you some ideas. You can keep working on the ideas of this style painting. And I'm getting very just having a good time with this, keeping things loose. I'm not getting too worried about it. Oh my God, am I splashing or this or that, or is there a smudge on my painting? Don't worry if you get a smudge on your painting or, whatever, something happens. Just keep painting, having a good time of it. You're going to do tons of these. You're going to keep working with me over and over again. So if the first 50 paintings don't turn out good, you're fine. You just keep working. And you're eventually, each one is going to get better and better as you go. Even if it's just something you don't even notice. Each time you do a painting or you do a small composition, it's going to help you to get better. That's for sure. Okay, so now we have that out of the way, and we got this here, a little bit of color, just a tiny bit of wash on the sails, a little bit, and then some blue there too. So just a little bit of warm and cool colors on the sails. And then maybe we'll have over here the same thing. There's some blue. Sails, maybe we'll make those sails orangey red. Let's do that. So we're going to make these like an orangey red. Like that. And then maybe over here, we're going to do the... Now I'm just going to start doing a tiny bit of the masts. So I'll add more brown to this and yellow. like this. Brown and yellow for the masts. And I just do a few lines, not all the way straight. And the same thing here. And this too, this mast is, I'm just doing a few, but not the whole line. I leave some breaks in the lines. It looks better if you break up your lines and not make your lines straight all the way through, and it's easier to paint that way too. You just go one line for an inch, move your hand, have your hand resting on the paper at all times. As long as your paint is dry, you can rest your hand on the pad, and you do that. And then you can go in even and add a few different colors there, maybe some blue. So you make it warm and cool, some blue, some brown, some orangey red, like that. Then we have a little bit of some flags at the top, like that. Maybe over here we'll use some blue, and we'll have another flag here, like that. And another one over here. Let's do maybe a green, like this, so we just have a good time here. And that, it looks fun to me. That looks pretty good. I'm going to take another break. It's been 20 minutes we've been working, so I always mention, again, if you've been just starting out here on my channel, I do take quite a few breaks as we go, and I think it helps. So you can kind of stay focused and then, come back to your painting once you've let it dry a little bit. You can kind of see we've gotten a lot of exciting things going on here. I think the things that we're going to complete when we're done, or when we come back next, is a purple, a little bit of purple here, like that. Just a little touch of purple with that other blue that we had in there. And we're just going to make a distant mountain. I think we can do that right now, actually, and then we'll come back and finish up the rest of it. I'll make that distant mountain about here, and it's going to start there, like that. And then I'm just going to take that and just, like this, like that. So you can make a beautiful distant purple mountain. Makes more depth in the painting, so you kind of feel like you're seeing back into the painting, into the far miles and miles away. You're seeing these beautiful distant purple mountains, cooler in color. So it's a cooler color, the purple. And then we can add a little more, possibly a few more boats or something over here. We're going to do that. We'll add a few distant boats over here across on the other shoreline over here. And that'll give us a beautiful feeling of steps back into the painting, going back in and giving you a beautiful three-dimensional quality to your painting, as that really brings a lot to it. If you can get some three-dimensional quality going in your drawings and paintings, it's really going to go a long way. So let me take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll finish up, and we'll just do a few more boats in the distance over here. And I think once we do that, we're going to be finished up and looking good. All right, Chris Petri here, and again, let's get some things kind of straightened up here. I'm going to actually take this water and clean the water bucket out a little bit, so I'll empty out that water and we'll put in some fresh, clean water. I always try to do that, especially too when we're finishing up the painting now. It's probably a good time to just add some fresh, clean water to the water bucket. And let's see what else we have here. Let's use our Prying Oval 16 watercolor brush here. We're going to actually do some distant boats that, like we said, in the distance here, kind of build a little more depth in our painting. So I have my tissue with me. I rinse off the brush, dampen up the brush, take off a little bit of water off the brush, and then I say, all right, what are we going to do for those distant boats? Let's make this a blue and a reddish brown. But these are going to be very light colors. We're not going to go with dark colors over here, because we're going to make these distant boats like that. And that's going to actually be pretty like a fishing boat. So this is going to be a fishing boat in the distance here. Okay, so that's over in the far distance, and that looks good. If you add in those distant, smaller boats like that and make them lighter, and the colors are more grayer, like you don't want to add really like bright, exciting, intense colors. And when you make something in the distance, always remember, whenever you're painting something in the distance that's further away from the main focal point of your painting in the front of your painting, or the nearest part of your painting, like the foreground. So this is the foreground with our sailboats here and our figures. Anything you're going to be doing in the distance over here, it's going to be colors that are more grayer. So you don't want to make them too exciting, like an orange. You wouldn't put a really bright orange or a bright red over here in the distance. You'd want to keep that color looking like kind of gray. So you can use any color you want, but you'd want to mix like a brown in there to gray down that color a little bit. So that's what we did here. We kind of made these a little bit of a more grayer color, and then we can also make a little bit of a reflection under these here, this ship here, just a tiny bit. Probably wouldn't see a whole lot of reflection at that distance, that far away, but we'll put a little bit of that there just to make it look a little more interesting, and maybe even a few distant, maybe sailboats in the far distance over here. So you can even do that. You could add some far distance like this, some. And I'm using it, like, again, I'm using this Prang Oval 16 number 6 brush with the very, very fine point. And you can kind of see how that looks good. It's a very fine point. You can mix up a couple different colors, maybe even a little bit of black. Even though you want to keep it light, you don't want to go too dark over here in the distance. Maybe a few more over here, a couple more lines over there. A couple more boats there. Then we can also take our brush and add a little bit of just some lines across the water. Just like that. And that looks pretty good. We add some movement to the water. Do that. You can just do some kind of sway your brush back and forth, and that gives you that feeling of water, like that. And you make this a little bit darker, a little more darker blue. There we go. Just a little bit of marks on the paper to make it look a little more interesting. How about a little more sand color? Orange and red. A little bit of yellow. So we'll have a little bit of that orange and red sand color. So I just want to get a little more of that sand color in there. And there we go. Look how good that looks. We've really had a fun time creating this painting. We kind of got all the interesting things we wanted to kind of accomplish in the painting done. Of course, we used the glazing technique. We got some gorgeous sailboats in here, some figures. We got some distant boats in, to kind of give that three-dimensional quality of the steps back into your painting, your foreground, your middle distance, your distant shoreline, and your far distance purple mountains there. And then even some beautiful distant ocean here, the sea out here. So I think we've actually, and the beautiful sky too, the beautiful sky wash, just wet, watery sky wash. I think all these things in combination give you a great look for your watercolor. So if you're an extreme beginner and you're practicing on these type of techniques with your seascapes or your landscape paintings, you're just going to be fine. You're just going to be using those same ideas over and over again. You might change around a few things as far as your subject matter. Maybe it's a cabin you're going to draw next time, but you're going to kind of have the idea of, if you draw a cabin, you're going to want to draw some fields and some further distance, and then maybe another smaller cabin way out in the distance, and then some of those purple mountains in the far distance. So remember, we're just going to keep reutilizing all the techniques and methods we use here on these paintings, especially the glazing technique, and it just works well no matter what subject matter you are using for the most part. So like this lends well for landscape painting, seascapes, city scenes, cityscapes, street scenes, things like that. This type of technique, as far as the glazing technique, works beautifully with all those, as well as, using all the, again, techniques and methods we're using here in the design portion of things, breaking your paper down into divisions so you can kind of get a feel for, how you want everything to look. Okay, so thank you so much for coming by, painting with me, drawing with me, having a great time. We're going to have more videos just like this coming up in the very, very near future, maybe the next week or two. We're going to be doing something very, very almost exactly like this one. So always remember, if you're subscribing on the right-hand side below, you won't miss a thing, and we'll continue to come back and paint, draw, have a fun time, cover all kinds of interesting tidbits of information and techniques with watercolor, everything watercolor here on my channel, whether we're doing seascapes, boats, landscapes, city scenes, portrait painting, figures, flowers, still life, fruits, vegetables, exercises, little small compositions. We're doing it all here. As long as you're working with me, we're going here strong, week after week, month after month, and year after year. So as you work with us, you're going to learn the watercolor medium and have a great time of it. Okay, so let's meet up again as soon as we can. And again, happy painting, everybody. Enjoy the watercolor journey, and we'll talk to you soon.